A stormy follow up to an unusually stormy pattern across the lower 48. I'm meteorologist Don Paul. Welcome to my podcast, Bits o' Blather on weather, climate, and occasionally some humor. Western New York is amongst many locations that has really seen only sparse snowfall way below average, about 27 inches below as of Saturday morning at the Buffalo airport. But there will be some additional snow that finally measures up to a few inches late Saturday and Saturday night, enough to put your car on the skids and plowable in some locations. An east northeast flow may provide a little bit of Lake Ontario enhancement north and northeast of Buffalo. The city itself probably totaling out closer to 2, possibly 3 inches by late Sunday morning, and somewhat heavier amounts as you get into the hilly terrain, but especially in the far southeast part of Western New York, from Olean to Wellsville. That's where the heaviest amounts will fall. Allegheny County will top off near half a foot in many locations. In other winters, not a big deal. This winter, a lot of us have just not had much experience driving on skid-worthy surfaces. This is the storm system that's going to produce some heavy slushy snow over the interior of New England, the Catskills, the Poconos. New York City itself will miss out on significant snow. Boston, a very close call between uh, moderate to heavy snow from Boston towards its northwestern suburbs. Slushy water laden snow and gusty winds could produce some power outages in the metro area of Boston, especially inland from the city, by Sunday morning. Elsewhere, some freezing rain could be a problem in parts of the Appalachians. The next storm that we've been talking about begins to make its big move on Tuesday, starting out in the southern plains, moving toward the western and central Great Lakes. That will send a surge of warmer south-southeast winds into western New York during Tuesday. Any mixed precipitation will turn quickly to rain. Winds will become rather gusty by late Tuesday and Tuesday night over the hills of the southern tier and especially the Lake Erie shoreline south of Buffalo. And the cold air behind this storm will be only cooler once the cold front clears western New York. And the good news about the winds with this storm is the European model has calmed down to some extent from its Friday run when it was pointing toward a storm deep and powerful enough to produce high winds. That's a severe weather term, and has taken the winds down to annoyingly gusty on Wednesday in western New York. Probably some gusts to over 40, but below the threshold at which you would expect damage. That storm system would probably really snarl things up in Chicago with air traffic delays due to heavy blowing snow. Also, a lot of snow across the central plains. And behind that storm, the coldest air with the polar vortex finally splitting off, getting disrupted, aiming toward the southwest so that its bitter cold air will first be aimed toward the high plains of Montana, the Dakotas, and there, the coldest air mass of the winter will sit for a few days, and it's going to take quite a while for that really cold air to push eastward toward the eastern Great Lakes here in the Buffalo area. So we'll be turning cooler behind the first storm on Tuesday. Another storm system approaches during Thursday. With models in poor agreement on the track, we could see some lake effect snow behind that system by later Friday and Saturday, but the signs right now are poorly organized lake snow with still not terribly cold air in place. That lessens the temperature lapse or drop off rate between a still warm lake surface and the atmosphere about a mile up. And that lessens lake effect potential. The lake wide open, no ice. In fact, as of Thursday, taking the 5 Great Lakes as an aggregate, only 0.4% ice cover, and that's confined to a few bays off Lake Superior. Extraordinarily low ice, virtually nothing. And there's no time for the lakes to begin freezing up by the end of the week storm, nor the storm behind it, which arrives later next weekend. The American model and the European model are wildly far apart on the track for that storm, so we cannot speculate on any snowfall amounts or lake effect potential. Remember, a warm lake without the proper wind alignment without the proper supply of Arctic air just isn't going to do it to Buffalo and Western New York. But it will be turning coldest sometime between the 15th and the 17th. At that time, your furnace will have already been clicking on an awful lot due to wind chill on your roofs and walls and windows. The wind chill index is for human heat loss from the skin. The wind chill effect is on inanimate objects as well. So it forces your furnace to turn on more often when your house is losing more heat into that gusty chilly wind, which eventually gets really cold. But we're not heading back to the kinds of cold we've seen in past years and decades. This will be well below average temperatures I'm talking about, some daytime highs probably in the 20s by the 15th into about the 19th, and some nighttime lows in the single digits. Somewhere in there, if we get clear skies and light winds, an outside chance of near zero overnight lows, but probably not. Probably too much cloud cover to drop below zero. And again, the lake potential, the lake effect potential is kind of an open book right now. A warm lake does not guarantee a lot of lake effect snow. You've got to have cold enough air to have a big temperature drop off rate from the surface up to about a mile, and you have to have the winds aligned properly to draw that Lake Erie moisture and push it into Buffalo or near Buffalo. So we just can't speculate on that yet. In the meantime, though, even this wave of colder weather that's finally coming with the polar vortex finally splitting off and dropping toward the northern Great Lakes by early next week, not this coming week, but the following week, it's temporary too. The extended range ensembles of the models, that's many multiple runs of the models, is suggesting the very cold pattern will begin to relax after the 20th at the earliest, the 22nd at the latest, and the latter part of the month will finish up out of that real Arctic cold and getting back to more seasonable conditions. So I hope you've found this episode useful, and I'm asking you again, please follow, because that's what we need to get this podcast to grow and spread out. No, I'm not making any money off it, at least not now anyway. And have a safe weekend. Again, if you're listening here in Western New York, widespread slick roads tonight. Even if you get only 2 inches, that's more than enough to skid on untreated surfaces. Be careful out there. Have a good weekend. Talk to you early next week.